The May 2026 summit in Beijing is not a final resolution. It will not end the friction between the world's two largest economies. To understand the negotiating strategies, observe this dual-axis timeline. Washington runs on a short-term political clock, counting down rapidly to the 2026 midterms for immediate wins. Beijing operates on a strategic clock, preserving stability through the 2030s to fortify domestic supply chains. Because these clocks are misaligned, neither side is motivated to make the painful concessions required for a comprehensive agreement. The summit is designed to produce a tactical truce. Predicting the deliverables of this truce requires mapping out exactly what each government needs for survival. We evaluate these demands using this negotiating matrix. On the left, the U.S. objective is transactional, needing immediate, tangible wins before November. On the right, China seeks structural restraint, reducing economic pressure to guarantee a stable runway for domestic development. Populating this matrix shows where transactional deals can move forward and where the structural constraints of each nation's economy make a deadlock unavoidable. The core U.S. economic agenda requires large-scale purchase commitments from Beijing, widely categorized as the 3 Bs. The first B is Boeing. A framework agreement for large-scale commercial aircraft procurement serves as a highly visible, high-dollar flagship deliverable for the U.S. delegation. The remaining 2 are beef and beans. The American agricultural sector requires stabilized export markets for soybeans and meat to offset recent market volatility. Parallel to agriculture and aviation, the U.S. requires a concrete security deliverable, establishing whole-chain oversight and strict law enforcement cooperation on fentanyl precursors. Beijing arrives with its own core agenda, categorized as the 3 Ts. China's requirements for a balanced relationship are trade relief, technology access, and strategic restraint regarding Taiwan. This creates an immediate asymmetry. The U.S. will likely secure its transactional purchases to project competence at home, but China's requests require dismantling established U.S. policy, hitting a structural wall. China's first structural demand is the abolition of Section 301 tariffs. It will fail to materialize. This flow model explains why. The U.S.-China trade conflict is not a simple bilateral policy dispute. It is a symptom of underlying macroeconomic imbalances. Look at how the internal economy functions. China operates with exceptionally high industrial capacity, but structurally weak household consumption. Domestic buyers cannot absorb the volume of goods domestic factories produce. That internal imbalance forces the excess capacity outward. China relies on persistent external export surpluses to maintain its growth. U.S. tariffs do not eliminate this structural overcapacity, they only force it to move. Instead of crossing the Pacific directly, these external surpluses hit the tariff barrier and redirect to alternative markets through complex supply chain workarounds. Neither government is currently willing to execute the massive domestic wealth redistribution or consumption required to fix the underlying imbalance. Without those changes, a structural trade deal remains out of reach. The deadlock extends directly into China's second core demand, easing export controls on high-tech access and semiconductor equipment. The U.S. executive branch operates under intense bipartisan congressional pressure, preventing any rollback of these controls. Washington targets specific pressure points in the supply chain, restricting China's ability to import cutting-edge lithography equipment or manufacture advanced AI chips. Financial regulations reinforce the hardware blockades. The Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States routinely securitizes capital flows, placing high barriers on Chinese investment. With foreign access restricted, Beijing is forced to aggressively fund its own domestic innovation, pushing towards technological self-reliance. In response, Beijing is applying its own counter-leverage. China holds an irreplaceable advantage in the deep processing of critical minerals, like rare earths, gallium, and germanium, which are essential for U.S. supply chains. Because both governments view dominance in advanced technology as the bedrock of their future national security, neither side can risk a compromise. If trade and technology are locked in structural deadlocks, the two powers face a strategic dilemma. How do they prevent this truce from collapsing? The answer requires moving past the narrative that the U.S. and China are engaged in a zero-sum AI race. Advanced AI ecosystems are interconnected by their nature. Despite attempts at decoupling, supply chains, datasets, and research communities continue to span across geographical boundaries. This interconnection means a localized system failure can instantly shock global markets. AI-driven algorithmic financial panics on one side of the divide will immediately propagate destabilizing shockwaves into the other. The stakes rise when evaluating military architecture. Integrating autonomous systems into defense networks introduces new pathways for automated nuclear escalation. To manage this, the two sides are negotiating functional guardrails. The baseline agreement requires maintaining human control, keeping a human in the loop for all nuclear launch decisions. In domains characterized by extreme technological disruption, statecraft shifts away from trying to win a theoretical race. The priority becomes building mutual circuit breakers to prevent systemic collapse. Beyond specific pledges on AI or fentanyl, the most vital guardrail is the institutionalization of direct, leader-level communication channels. The bilateral relationship remains exposed to unpredictable external frictions, including energy shocks driven by conflicts in the Middle East. Regional flashpoints act as triggers for volatility, particularly the escalating tensions surrounding the lead-up to the 2028 elections in Taiwan. In an environment where underlying trust is effectively zero, the ambiguity of advanced technology makes it easy to misinterpret a technical glitch as a coordinated attack. Rapid, established back-channel dialogues are the only mechanism to clarify intent. Establishing these communication protocols is the actual definition of a successful summit in an era of deep mistrust. It replaces the expectation of a grand treaty with the reality of crisis management. Based on the matrix, this is the final predictive model of the relationship. The outcomes are strictly bound. The summit will yield highly visible transactional economic wins alongside narrow functional security protocols. The structural demands remain deadlocked. This limited outcome reflects the specific type of statecraft required when two powers operate on such asymmetric clocks. Rivalry and interdependence do not cancel each other out. They act upon each other simultaneously, creating a pressurized, contested equilibrium. Superpower diplomacy now focuses on installing the structural circuit breakers necessary to ensure the competition survives the decade.